Hello everybody and welcome to Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. I'm Jack and today we're going to be taking a look at the Salt Lake City regional results. Salt Lake was this weekend, just gone. It was the first regional in North America for over 2 years, so really exciting stuff. We had 627 players, I believe, compete. So a huge amount of players. You can see this is the top 74 or day 2 graphic from the tournament. So this was all of the decks that made day 2. This is on the Complexity Card Gaming social media. So yeah, make sure you check Complexity Card Gaming out. And you can see, as we expected, Mew was pretty dominant going into day 2. We'll talk about the results a little bit more in a minute, but no Mews made it all the way through to top 8. But it definitely was the most popular deck that made, the deck that made it the most into day 2. With a total of 32 people playing Mew. Then there was a load of Arceus different Arceus builds. There was Arceus straight Inteleon, Arceus Inteleon Moltres, Arceus Malamar VMAX, and then the other Arceus decks up here. There was some Beedrill, Gengar, which actually ended up winning the tournament. Gyarados, Sandaconda, and Duraludon. So yeah, pretty varied Arceus decks. There was some more Gengar. As you can see, a lot of these decks are really, really trying to hard counter Mew. So you can kind of understand why Mew didn't make it all the way to top 8. Especially given that how many of these decks were basically just targeting Mew. Excuse me. So yeah, you can. It was a pretty interesting result. As you can see, Arceus Gengar was the deck that won. We'll be going over the list momentarily. But yeah, very interesting sort of day 2 metagame breakdown. I think people kind of expected this many Mews. But I don't think people expected Mew to perform so badly going into day 2. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. But yeah, just before we kick off the lists, make sure you check out the Potown store where you can get 5% off your order using code OMNIPOKE. You can check out all of the stuff they've got there, including brilliant stars codes. So yeah, make sure you check them out. So yeah, onto the lists themselves. This is the first. Well, this isn't the exact first place list, but I've gone through and really tried to work out exactly what the first place list was playing. This was where I was at. This is basically, after watching the stream games back over and over, this was, not over and over, but a couple of them back this afternoon, this was as close as I could get to working out the 60. In general, I think, I'm hoping we will see the list eventually, because I think it would be really interesting to see how close I was, but also exactly what list won the first regional this year. It would be really interesting to see what made it, but yeah, this was as close as I could get. Arceus Gengar, honestly, has was pretty under the radar. No one was really talking about Arceus Gengar. A couple of people had kind of mentioned it in passing. I know some people had tried a thin Arceus in Gengar as opposed to an Arceus deck with a Gengar package, sort of the other way around. But I hadn't seen too much talk about a full-on 4-3 Arceus and then Gengar as the backup attacker. So that's pretty interesting. Obviously, again, trying to kind of target Mew with the Gengar package and then just use Arceus' consistency to try and deal with other Arceus variants. Obviously, the VMAX has a lot of HP, so I guess you inevitably end up going down the VMAX route a lot of times anyway. But yeah, pretty interesting deck. The double barrels that you only draw scares me a little bit. In general, it looked like this deck was pretty scary to play. Some of the turn ones were a bit awkward. There's only 8 ball search outs for finding your Gengars and your Arceuses and your Bidoofs in the early game. So you really do have to draw them pretty well, which is unfortunate. I don't know what ball search you'd want to play though, because level ball is so bad in this deck, right? So maybe you just have to be happy with the 8 ball search and just say I'll get the Pokemon out. It feels like a Adventurer's Discovery type of deck or something like that, which is a bit pants, but yeah. Gengar's still proving it's one of the best answers to Mew in terms of attacking options. There was no Moltres, Baby Moltres, Big Moltres, or anything like that in this list as well, which would have been interesting to see, just to have a supplementary attacker that didn't rely on Raihan or whatever. Obviously, you don't have to run the Clara package, but maybe it's not consistent enough without the Clara package. So, yeah. Double Hyperpot's an interesting one. In general, obviously, you do end up in Arceus decks having a plethora of spare double turbos, so I can see them being useful. Being able to tank a hit with Arceus or Gengar in general seemed pretty good, just to try and heal it off. I'm not sold on their viability in terms of the mirror, though. I guess they kind of are mirror techs, because they're doing 200 into you. They're not really mirror techs, thinking about it. Outside of Big Charm takes it out to 190, 300, 310. So they're very, like, they're kind of mirror techs, right? With Big Charm, or they can help Arceus in the mirror. But it all seems kind of awkward. I'm not sold on the Hyperpots. I think the Collapse Stadiums are actually pretty strong. Collapse seems like it did some pretty good work against a lot of the field, sort of all of these Rapid Malleys and that kind of thing, all these Inteleon decks. I can see it really hurting. Obviously, it's pretty good into Mew as well, though I have a feeling Paths would be just better into Mew. I'd be really interested to see this list with Paths instead. Obviously, you want to be able to Arceus or whatever, but after, like, being able to Arceus, search out like Marnie Path and then power up a Gengar basically feels like backbreaking for a Mew, right? That seems pretty bad. They have to, off the Marnie Path, get Stadium out, plus probably bossing the Gengar. They can't, like... That's pretty spooky. Though people are respecting Path more, so maybe this was just a metacal saying people are going to respect Path, so I'm not going to bother playing them. Collapse having some additional healing here and there is pretty good. Tool Scrapper I saw get rid of 2 Big Charms on day 1, or day 2, which was pretty big. I guess, in general, I personally think Scrapper is an okay card, but in certain instances, Jammer is a bit better. But I think in this where you're running 3 one-off tools already, I guess you want Scrapper. And just give up the fact that, you know, you might be not getting as much value out of it. Double Right Hand is pretty nice. Being able to set up attackers out of nowhere, I think is quite big. Especially given that you have draw power off the back of the barrel as well. Yeah, obviously this isn't the exact 60, so there could be some things that when we do get to see the 60 that need changing. But like I say, I watched a few of the games back on stream, and this was as close as I could get. The research and Arceus count, I can't remember which way around I thought they were. I thought I'd change this, or I'd save this list with 3 V-Star and 2 research, but maybe I hadn't, which maybe means it was only 2 V-Star. That seems kind of wild though. So I can't remember where I decided on that count. But either way, this is like what seemed to be kind of the list that was being run. Yeah, it's hard for me to say how this feels without actually playing it. I haven't had time to play it yet. I might have a few games with it this week, just kind of to get my head around how the deck functions. It looked a little bit spooky. Some of the turns looked a little bit spooky. A lot of Arceus this weekend looked a bit spooky. It looked very bricky in some instances, which is a little worrying because basically the only thing I want to do is get like Arceus attached most of the time, right? And sometimes missing that is a bit awkward. Obviously, the Inteleon engines that get to keep calling and then Raihan attach Arceus is still fine, but this list not playing the keep calling really means that if you miss attachment on Arceus, you're pretty sad. Though you are running 12 energy, which is more than some of the other Arceus Sids are, to be fair, so it's probably fine. But yeah, pretty interesting list taking down the second regional of the tournament, or of the season, of the revived season. I have to see where this goes. I don't think it's the strong. I'm actually a little bit more scared if I were a Mew player of regular Gengar. I think because I think there's more you can exploit in this deck as a Mew player. But yeah, it looks to be a pretty cool deck. Obviously, again, Gengar is still a great Mew counter, so you can't really argue with it too much. I will save this because I have a feeling that's what I would play. Second place list was the Suicune Ludi. Yeah, Suicune Ludi is a really interesting one. I've always been a fan of the deck. We actually put it pretty high on our tier list about a month ago, and just no one wanted to play with the deck, it feels. I I think it's a deck that has a pretty high skill ceiling as well, personally. I think there's a lot of intricate plays you only pick up after playing a lot with the deck. So I can see why it's maybe not been converting as well in online tournaments, which is interesting. But yeah, I was super happy to see this doing well because I've been a fan of the deck basically ever since, well, going into this format. I thought we both Joe and I thought the deck was very strong. So yeah, it's cool seeing it do well. Excuse me. Yeah, honestly, there's nothing too crazy about this outside of the cross switches, right? Cross switches take up a lot of space, so it looks like they've had to cut all the way down to just Ryans and Melanies. Though honestly, this is basically the only supporters you ever want in the deck. Like, you can weave a Marnie in here and there, or a boss in here and there, but you don't need to weave bosses in with cross switches, I guess. And so you basically just aren't Marnieing. Do you care about not Marnieing? Probably not. I think Suicune's a very good deck at just dealing with whatever's in the active. You have a lot of manipulation through... well, you have a lot of like search and random things you can do for all of the Inteleon stuff. Very interesting to see only 2 Shade Dealings and no Quick Shooting, because I feel like Quick Shooting, Choice Belt, and Ludicolo, between the 3 of them, they offer you so many different damage, so many different options in terms of damage, that I really would have liked to see 1 Quick Shooting. But evidently, the double Inteleon was what was working well for Finnegan Lynch. He actually was discussing this deck on a podcast like 2 or 3 days before the tournament. So obviously very open about his list. I remember hearing him say that hearing them say they had like 500 games of the list, just felt like they knew it at the back of their hand. So again, very much testament to high skill ceiling. Finnegan is a great player. Yeah, really happy to see this one do well. I actually really like the deck. I think had Liverpool been in like a week and a half rather than like 4 days, had we had another week, I actually could have seen myself really trying to grind some games with this, because I think I could have been persuaded to try it out again. But I just haven't played the deck in like a month or so, so I feel a bit out of the loop with it. But I think the deck is really, really strong. I think it's definitely hard to play. I wouldn't pick up and play it, I don't think, if you hadn't tried it out too much prior to this tournament or prior to Liverpool. But yeah, I think the list is pretty solid. Oh, it's all going on Joe's stream today. It sounds like someone's just subbed. Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. The cross switches, I think, are very strong in an Inteleon package. I don't think it's really played enough. The only tech I can think of it ever really being played in is Ice Rider. So pretty cool to see it here. Yeah, you have to be kind of careful with them, but I guess you basically have no discard in this deck, right? Outside of optional discard with Quick Ball and the 1 Ultra Ball. So you probably do realistically get both procs off Cross Switcher if you want them every game. Which is pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. 1 Cape of Toughness is also huge, I think. Obviously, not great against the winning list that played Tool Scrapper, but a caped Suicune is actually a bit of a beast to deal with. 260 for 2 prizes is a bit annoying. Especially when you... Yeah, it does work. I was just trying to work out how many extra power tabs you needed with Mew, but it does still put you in. It's 2 but 3 if they're playing if they're playing double turbo. So it is actually 1 extra if they're playing double turbo as well. So yeah, having extra survivability against Mew is also pretty nice. Though I think in the hands of a good player, I'm pretty sure this should be somewhat favourable against Mew. Should the Mew have not really played much Suicune Ludi? I don't know. Maybe it's closer than I think, but I think Choice Belt plus Suicune plus Ludicolo means that Suicunes get OHKO'd. So it means that Mew VMAX can get OHKO'd with 3 bench, I'm pretty sure. And given you're also playing a Horn, that's basically 2 bench, which means you can realistically be threatening an OHKO from any point, which is pretty wild. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the list personally. I'm a big fan of the deck. So yeah, really cool to see this one do well. Now, as you can see, as we come down here, there are no, like I said, there are no Mew decks that made top 8, which is a pretty wild tournament. Unfortunately, I'm missing a Gengar. This was indeed the third place list. This was just a straight Gengar Houndoom with a cheeky Stonjourner in here as well. Turns out that's great for Mirror, that's great for Arceuses, that's great for all these different Fighting Week Pokemon right now, which is pretty cool. More of a standard build that we're kind of more familiar with seeing. Just playing the paths, not playing any kind of any kind of counter stadium. So you really want to use your Lumineon and Crobat early, probably, unless you're playing a deck that's going to be bouncing your paths for you. But yeah, other than that, pretty standard. You've got the VIP pass build, which I don't hate, to be honest. You know, just getting into the game is pretty important as Gengar. 2 Tooljammer is probably the strangest card in the list. I can see not necessarily needing the the choice belt too much, but I feel like big charmed Arceuses are still a problem, right? Because you're doing 250 with the Gengar, 270, 290, 310, so you need 3 single strike energy. That's not too bad, I guess. But having like just 1 choice belt would at least mean you can deal with no, you're always going to be able to do it. Yeah, thinking about it, you're always going to be able to do it. So Tooljammers are better than choice belts in here. Are they better than Big Charms? Big Charm lets you live against a regular Galarian Zapdos V with no damage buffs. So that's an interesting interaction. Are there any other instances where you would be able to live? Other Stonjourners do 120, 140, 160, 180 is 360. So you would not live a triple single strike Stonjourner. So maybe not worth it. Depending on the amount of Zapdos going into decks, it may be worth trying out Big Charm. But Tooljammers still seem pretty solid, to be honest. Reducing... Oh wait, I guess in the instance of... What am I saying? I guess in the instance of Big Charm, Choice Belt is just as good as Tooljammer, but then this also acts as a Big Charm against Choice Belt. So yeah, Tooljammer does both Big Charm and what Big Charm and Choice Belt does in this exact instance. So yeah, Tooljammer's definitely better. Pretty interesting card. Other than that, the list is pretty standard. Can't really say too much about it. I think obviously they've been able to save a little bit of space by only playing 4 stadiums when some lists have been playing 5, even 6, just to be able to count or bounce their own path and or use towers just to get into the game. But yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Nothing too crazy about the list. It's pretty clean. I still worry about the amount that Gengar bricks, but hey ho. We have a Inteleon and then like Arceus, Bird Box, Dark. I don't really know what this deck was listed as. Was this one of the... I think this was just listed as one of the Arceus, Inteleon, Moltres decks rather than the Bird Box deck. So yeah, this was... I believe this was Nicholas's list. Let me get my... Yeah, this was Nicholas Moffat's list. Him and Ian Robb both made... both made top 8 with a 59... there were 59 cards the same, right? Ian's list, their list was playing... Ian's list was playing an extra Power Pad over an Inteleon, which Nicholas' list was playing the extra Inteleon. This was one of the more popular decks in going into day 2. The thin Arceus line does scare me somewhat, but from what I understand, their mentality was Arceus is like getting an attack from Arceus is really good, obviously, but also just being able to Sobble, keep calling for 3 Sobbles. As long as you get an Arceus on the board, you can always like Raihan double turbo attach if you desperately need to go to the Arceus route. And if not, you have like early game just tempo attacks with Moltres or whatever. You have Zapdos for the mirror. I feel like everyone cut Dunsparce, so Zapdos was probably a very, very good card for both of them this weekend. You've got the Moltres Clara package to be able to help with Mew. This Cape of Toughness I saw attached to not a Moltres, a Zapdos in many instances throughout the day, and it seemed insanely good. Really difficult for Arceus decks to deal with because you have 250 HP, which they just can't reach, which is pretty strong. And I think, honestly, that was one of the biggest issues with Zapdos was basically, like, you always traded 2 for 2 with it, but with a cape, you don't trade 2 for 2 with it anymore. It's always a lot harder to trade 2 for 2 right outside of, like, other attackers. If you're just playing the pure Inteleon Arceus deck, you basically can't trade 2 for 2 for it. So, yeah, a caped Zapdos is pretty big. I have a feeling the amount of tool scrappers, jammers, that kind of thing might go up going into next weekend. Just because I can see this being a very easy mini package to have. 1 cape, 1 Zapdos, 1 fighting energy to be able to deal with some of these Arceus decks. So that's kind of the new Zapdos package rather than just the Zap and Energy. I remember looking at the list and kind of wanting another Scoop Up Net, but I like at least having 3, well, I guess 4 with the rope switch outs. I don't know how useful the rope was for them during the day. I could see the rope just being another Scoop Up Net, but realistically, you have to play things like Raihan and Clara so frequently within the deck, you probably don't have time to boss too often. So I can see the rope being like a pseudo boss in the early game. I think personally, I do like the idea of second Scoop Up Net though, just because it feels like the deck is somewhat combo heavy. You need to be, finding your Clara combos or your Raihan combos or your random capes here and there. So being able to double dip on the Inteleons does feel pretty important. I don't think Ian's list played a difference in those. We'll have a look at it in a second. But yeah, pretty interesting list. You've got the 1 water to be able to attack with the Inteleon in the single prize matchups, as well as just trying to offset the prize trade here and there. Just set stuff up. You've got the, like I say, obviously the 1 fighting for the Zapdos and that kind of thing. Yeah, this is a list that I think I would really need to play a lot with to know exactly what I was able to cut, because naturally you look at this, you think of Arceus decks and you're like, oh, I need to find Arceus attachment turn 1. And I don't think this deck wanted to that much. I think Keep Calling was a lot of the time their early game strategy to be able to open up Raihan players the following turn. But yeah, I'd need to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that was the case. This was Ian's list. They both played the same list, bar 1 card, as I mentioned. Ian cutting the Inteleon and playing a Power Pad, whereas Nicholas did not play the Power Pad. Their list played the second Inteleon. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. A 5-line list. You love to see it. Yeah, pretty much the same list though. Basically, like kind of what we saw in Brisbane, but adding in the fighting package and I guess a couple of other cute techs here and there to try and weave in some combos. I would imagine the fighting cape Zapdos package was pretty chunky, which is why maybe they had to move away from Arceus. But Arceus playing more of a supporting role in this list, I guess, overall. 6th place was indeed another Gengar. Looks like it was the same 60 for the most part. Looks like they were playing an extra urn, I think, over an Ultra Ball. But other than that, pretty much the exact same 60. Pretty solid stuff. 7th place was a straight Arceus Inteleon with a 1/1 barrel. This is actually the sort of hybrid hive mind list of Asaya, Rahul, Xanderpero, and a few others. And it was Xanderpero that actually made it all the way to the top 8. 4 of them, I believe 6 of them played the exact same 60 or close to the same 60. All 6 of them made points and 4 of them made day 2, with Xander making top 8. So fairly decent result. Obviously the differences from regular Arceus Inteleon, playing the 1/1 barrel, playing the Ziggy, which is not really standard, but kind of started to see a bit more play, and playing the 1 Sydney. Sydney is kind of their big tech. To help out in, there's so much like special energy in the stadium going around right now. Being able to win Stadium War like that, but also really disrupt the opponent is pretty strong. I don't know how often you get to Sydney in the games. I only saw they were all on stream, or the deck was on stream 3 times, I think. And I only saw Sydney used in one of the stream games. I don't know whether it was used in any of the others, but I know I saw Rahul use it at least once. But yeah, then playing sort of these other one-off supporters. You've got the one Sharon, one Melanie, one Marnie. And then the power pad to just kind of cheat a space and be able to get an extra one of or two of whichever ones you need more so. I still really like the judge thing, but I don't think you have... I feel like your judge spot is Sydney. You can only play one of these tech supporters. So I personally prefer judge over Sydney, but I can see why they like the idea of Sydney. Other than that, again, fairly standard. Upping the path count, I think, as Natalie said in some of the discussion that she had after winning her tournament, that she was able to play 2 stadiums because the expected meta was 2 Path to Peak, and would put in a 3rd stadium because the expected meta would be going up to 3rd Path to Peak. So I think this is a fairly standard change that most people made, and a lot of Mews will have counteracted this accordingly and played extra stadiums. But yeah, pretty interesting list. Like I say, I feel like there's a lot going on with these one-off supporters and this kind of thing. But at the heart of it is Arceus Inteleon, which has the most tutor of basically every deck in the format, right? So realistically, if there's a deck that's going to be able to get these combos working, it's going to be this one, because you're able to pick and choose all the cards you want at the right times. So yeah, pretty cool to see this do well. And then finally, we had Jolteon make it. They'd actually finished in 9th, but because of the obvious events of the tournament, meant that this ended up as the 8th place list. Again, a super standard Jolteon list, to be honest. Just respecting, basically, this list. I can't remember. I think this was the list that I saw. I think this was the player that I saw talking about this list that basically said, it's pretty much been unchanged since Fusion Strike. As you can see, there are no new cards in from Fusion Strike because they felt that none of the new Brilliant Stars cards actually made enough of a difference. They just wanted to really Marnie Path people for Marnie 4 Path, try and brick them and, max Thunder Rumble to capitalize on all of these Inteleon engines and Houndoom engines and the barrel engines, that kind of thing. I still think it's not the strongest into Mew, but probably has the earliest or the best chance of pathing them turn 1, which probably means... this was the second best deck in the format pre Brilliant Stars, right? So that was for a reason. It still scares me a little bit into Mew. I still feel like, especially now they get to play Choice Band, it's even easier for them to get into the game against Jolteon. Win the game if they get into the game against Jolteon. But the whole idea is Marnie Path and not letting them get into the game, right? So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to see how the Path to the Peak sort of count ebbs and flows throughout the tournament in terms of how many stadiums Mew wants to play. I think in general, Fan of Waves is a bit of a weaker card now just because Double Turbo exists, but there's plenty of other decks playing Special Energy. I think I'd probably try and find space for something else, though I don't know what I would actually put into this list. It's just super clean, right? Lots of 4-offs, making sure the strategy of the deck comes off every time. Path Marnie is broken, so let's just Path Marnie people. Will this amount to an uptick in Malamar play? Not Malamar, Manaphy play? Probably in potentially in single prize decks. I don't think other decks will be playing Manaphy though, even though Jolteon has done well. Because I don't think they're too fussed. This doesn't feel like the big bad of the format that it did outside of Mew, I guess, in the Fusion Strike meta. So I don't think it will cause too much of an uptick in Manaphy. It might cause Malamar to play Manaphy again. Malamar did quite well this weekend. It's actually a deck I'm really considering for Liverpool, to be honest. So, yeah, it might cause Malamar players to think twice about cutting the Manaphy in the lists. But yeah, basically, Jolteon is just fantastic at punishing Inteleon engines, right? And we've seen that there are a few Inteleon engines around. So yeah, you're able to really try and capitalize on just beating them up, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, not a single Brilliant Stars card in here. It's pretty wild, I guess. Like I say, I'm pretty sure I saw them saying basically the list pre-Fusion Strike or pre-Brilliant Stars. The Fusion Strike list was the one I had the most games with, the one I tested with the most, the one I enjoyed the most, and didn't really feel it gained anything from Brilliant Stars. So yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, like I say, no Mew in top 8 is pretty wild. To see, I think the highest placing Mew was 11th place, played by Caleb Gedimer, which I don't think we have a list for yet. But yeah, this was as close as I could get to the winning list, like I say, after taking a look at some of the VODs. Hopefully we'll get to see the list for sure, so we can see what I need to change to actually have the correct list. But either way, this was where I was able to get to. So maybe try this out if you're still not sure what to play for Liverpool, or just want to kind of get a little bit of experience on what I would imagine a lot of people will try out this week, especially given that it's got Gengar, so theoretically it's got a decent Mew. It's got the Arceus engine, so you've got to hope it's going to be quite consistent, right? It scares me a little bit, I must admit. I think there's a couple of cards I would personally want to see how they worked in the list and maybe potentially change. I think the Hyperpots are maybe a missing link, but I can't, or a weak link. I can't think of anything where they're like insanely good. But there could be something specific that Andrew was playing them for. So hopefully we get some kind of tournament report from or about the winning list at some point. But otherwise, maybe give this a go and see whether you enjoy it. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. I'm Jack from Omnipoke. We're streaming today, tomorrow, Wednesday. I don't know whether there'll be a stream Thursday, but make sure you're checking them out on Twitch. Ready for Liverpool this upcoming weekend. Very excited. So yeah, hopefully, well, this will be one of the last videos, I guess, or one of the last videos theoretically this week before Liverpool. I think there'll be one or two more, and then we're going to be heading to Liverpool. So yeah, really exciting stuff. Can't wait to get playing again. And yeah, other than that, thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Omnipoke, and look forward to seeing you guys in another video soon. Cheers, everyone.